So first I want to welcome everybody for joining us tonight for your second act, part one. My name is Brittany, and I am one of the librarians at the Arlington Heights Memorial Library. So the way we have it set up tonight, as you enter the Zoom meeting, I'm going to be turning off your camera and your audio. We encourage you to use the chat feature. Looks like Kelly already has you putting some information there in the chat, and it's located at the bottom of your screen. So Kelly will answer as many of these questions as time allows at the end of the presentation. We do have the captions automatically enabled, which you can turn on and off at the bottom of your screens. Please note that tonight's program is being recorded for sharing on our social media channels. So only the presenter is going to be recorded. For those registered, you will receive a link once, since this is a 3-part series, you will receive the link once the third session has happened. And those that are registered, you will automatically receive that link. At the conclusion of tonight's presentation, I'll turn off the recording feature, so feel free to ask questions. And now I'm delighted to introduce our presenter who is ready for action. So tonight I do want to welcome back Kelly Will, and I don't know if you guys know this, but she actually grew up in Arlington Heights. So just a bit of that information. We are so happy to welcome her back tonight. She is founder and CEO of She Will Build. And Kelly has spent her time as a famous NYC celebrity columnist. And she dove into the digital and tech world. And she has done some big budget consulting for Pepsi Company and for the Ford Motor Company. So I'm going to hand it right over to you, Kelly, and thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks, Brittany. I was ready to go. Okay, so very excited to have you all here. Really excited to talk about a lot of information in this 3-part series. And that's really kind of where I want to start tonight, is what we're going to be talking about. And then I'll do a little bit further info just on my background, so you have a couple minutes of understanding, like, why am I even listening to this person speak about career? How is she even an expert? I want to give you a little bit of insight into that. But first, let's talk about what's going to happen in these 3 sessions. First of all, you do want to have a notebook, pen, paper, your notes app open. Have something ready to take notes, because I think that there's probably going to be a lot of material here that you're going to want to be taking notes on. This 3-part series is structured just like my client sessions. A few of my longtime clients are in here with us right now. And so they'll be very familiar with this modality, but I have what I call the Kelly Toolkit. And it is a step-by-step process to preparing people to enter the job market. And that strategy is first resume. So we will start and we will go in this order, just like any of my clients who are working with me one-to-one do. So the first part of the toolkit is resume. The second part of the toolkit is then LinkedIn. The third part of the toolkit is the actual sort of targeting. What do I want? How do I find it in the market? And then what is that strategy to deploy my resume and my LinkedIn? So strategic deployment. And that includes sort of your cover letters, your referral link requests, right? How do I enter a 2023 job market? And then we will sort of conclude with the big salary conversation, right? How do I say what I want to make? And then interview prep. How do I speak and present myself to, reach and achieve that salary, right? How do I sell myself as that salary, and how do I get into my next role? So that's the process. We will follow that pretty strategically throughout the 3 sessions. And tonight is about resume and LinkedIn. And next week will be pretty specifically focused on the deployment strategy and the job seeking strategy itself. And then we'll conclude with the salary and the interview prep. We'll have time for questions at the end. So in general, if you could hold your questions until the end, that would be fantastic. And I will try to make at least a 20-minute segment for questions, because I think, based on what I've seen in terms of all of your experience and where you're working and where you've last worked, there's a lot of diversity in this crew. And you probably will need some specific guidance and have very specific questions for me. And I love that. And I hope to answer all your questions. And if for any reason I don't, I'll share my personal email address so that you can follow up if you have any quick questions at the very end. All right, so let's get started. Who am I? Why are you listening to me tonight? Ultimately, I did start my career as a pretty well-known New York City gossip columnist. I had columns in the Times, the New York Post, the New York Daily News, and was a pretty successful journalist. And around 2009, 2010, print publishing was certainly dying and journalism itself was really changing. And I recognized that I was going to need to make my own pretty major career transition. And I did. It was really tough, and it took a long time, so much so that it really took me almost 7 years to really successfully go from being a wildly successful and fairly known journalist in very specific circles in New York City, to finally pivoting my own career and heading up talent acquisition. And so I was heading up recruiting and talent acquisition for organizations. And while I was doing that, I finally made that pivot. It took 7 years of time. While I was in talent acquisition for organizations, I really quickly recognized that, I was seeing obviously hundreds and hundreds of resumes a month, and it kind of broke my heart because I knew people had great stories to tell. And I knew that everybody has immense intrinsic talent and then real skill sets that apply to their work, but that people really struggled with telling their story. And while I was working with organizations heading up talent acquisition, I was reached out to by a decently well-known site called Career Contessa. And that's, I think, how Brittany actually found me. And I'm a coach on Career Contessa because they had heard about me through a friend in the industry, and she had recommended me as a coach for Career Contessa. And so I am a career coach for Career Contessa. I also have my own career coaching business. I still do a little bit of consulting for companies, but very little. I've realized that working one-to-one with people and doing this very direct work to impact all of your your toolkit for how do I transform my career? How do I get where I want to go? That has become my passion. And realistically, it makes so much sense because it took me 7 years to do it by myself. And I always say, if I could have hired someone or jumped on a webinar and had somebody tell me exactly what the toolkit was that I needed to do it, God, I would have done that in a second. So that's who I am. And that's why I'm here tonight. And luckily, Brittany found me on Career Contessa, and I just happened to be an Arlington Heights OG. And I grew up in Arlington Heights, and we moved away when I went to high school. So long story short, that's that. Let's talk about you. First of all, right, our first segment tonight is on resume. And so what I'm actually going to introduce to you all is a series of resumes. I have 7 resumes that I'm going to be showing you and taking you through tonight. I'm hoping I can get through all 7 before we go on to the LinkedIn portion. And we'll see what we can do. It's okay if we don't get to all 7. But I pulled together a diverse mix of my client base, and I redacted information from the resumes that you're going to see. So the personal information is redacted, and you will be able to sort of get a sampling of what we do and how we create resumes. Now, let's get my screen share going for you. That should do it. Share. Good. Okay. We're in. And we'll start with this one. So as you can see, this is a resume sample, and it's a freelance consulting resume. So this person has had some freelance and consulting experience. The first thing that you should all note on your notepads or in your notes apps, whatever you're working on right now, is that one, it doesn't matter if your resume is 1 page or 2 pages. That's a misnomer, right? Everybody's saying your resume has to be 1 page. That is not true. I would totally disagree with that, especially in a world where people are reading PDFs. For the most part, very few people are printing out resumes any longer. So people are scanning PDFs. A recruiter is scanning a PDF. Believe me, you having a 1.5 page resume is no big deal if you're telling a great story, right? Of you at work, a really unique story. You're not repeating the same bullets again and again and again in every section. You don't have gobs of excess and think you have to have, if I have 5 bullets in the first section, I have to have 5 bullets in every other section. No, what you'll see in my client resumes, in the samples that I have, are elements of the most important, most interesting, most valuable work that you've done in your current role. And then moving down through your career, what were the significant impact moments in that role? And really fine-tuning bullets on those, right? Think about stories you would love to tell in an interview. Oh, that was really impressive that I did that. Well, guess what? That should make it into a bullet in that section. As you move down your resume, you actually should have less and less bullets, typically in sections. So if you've had a 14-year career, you're probably realistically likely to have a 2-page resume because there's probably quite a story there to tell. If you're fairly new in your career, you've only got a couple of years of experience, or you're only on perhaps, say, your 3rd job, maybe your 4th role total, it's very likely you could have a 1-page resume. It's wonderful if you have a 1-page resume, right? But you do not need to try to force that issue. So it is far more important that you tell a compelling story of the best work you did in each role and fine tune it, narrow it down, tighten it up, edit it 100 times than for you to simply, just, put a couple of bullets down and squeeze it all into 1 page and not have a really strong story of your career, or, to have an expansive resume that's 3 pages long. You don't want that. My limit typically is 2 pages. There are a few types of clients that may have more than 2 pages. They're very specific. If you are a lawyer, it is likely you may have a multi-page resume that goes beyond 2. If you have won a ton of awards, and you're going to see one of my awards resumes, someone in marketing had won a lot of awards. Their campaigns had won a lot of awards. Okay, then you could potentially have a 3-page resume. And then the final thing is if you've been published. So, if this is a proper sort of education or government CV, right? Government CVs, they can be quite long. And also, if you are in education and you have been published, it's potentially possible that you would have a very long resume CV. Otherwise, for the most part, 1 or 2 pages, most of my clients know, like, we got to get this to 2 pages. It has to be less than 2 pages. We don't want to be sending people a book. They're not going to read past 2 pages if they can help it. They're scanning the 2nd page basically to look at your education. And get a glimpse of that. If you have something really dynamic that you do as a side hustle or extracurricular or out of office, and you have it sort of under your education, that's fun. That may be eye-catching, but you don't need to expect that people are going to spend 30 minutes on your 2nd page. They're not. The majority of your resume is going to happen, the reading of your resume, it's going to happen on page 1. And realistically, if you don't hook them in the top 1/3, please write this down. If you don't hook them in the top 1/3 of your resume, you're in trouble. It's really unlikely you're going to keep their attention. Okay. I just talked a lot there. So we're going to move on now, and we're going to talk about the format that you're looking at right now. And you see we are in Google Docs. As a few of you who are current clients of mine know, Google Docs is it. We do everything in Google Docs. It's great. It's easy. Everything is basically guaranteed to be saved. And we do all of our resumes live in Google Docs. So we edit them here. We turn them into PDFs here. And I'll talk about that in a second. But you need in the 2023 market to have a basic text resume. So if you've heard about artificial intelligence and these AI bot systems that are reading resumes in applicant tracking systems, these are not the most wildly intelligent next level artificial intelligence systems reading resumes. They really are not, right? The technology is still young and the technology is not good at reading hyper designed resumes. So we keep a really text-friendly document ready to go, and that's our resume. And it basically looks like what you're looking at right now. And I'm sure a lot of you have been scanning through this. This is it. It's simple. It's black and white. We sometimes use some diversity in the grading of the colors. We use basic fonts. I prefer a Calibri. Some of you will hate that. Fine, then use something else. But I will tell you the reason that I prefer a Calibri is because it fits the most letters on a line. So the way that the letter takes up space, you can fit the most letters and words on a line with the Calibri font. I typically tend to keep font at a 10. That's kind of it. Every now and then I'll drop it down to a 9.5. I don't go smaller than that. And I do typically assume for the most part that people will be scanning this resume as the PDF because my clients send their resumes as a PDF. But, you know, if they do print it out, obviously, if it's sent as a PDF, you know exactly what it's going to look like. All right, so here in Google Docs, we'll take a quick look at this resume sample, and then we'll move on to the next resume sample. All right, so right now we're looking at this. This person has recent freelance consulting. So she actually has been out of work, and she has been doing some freelance consulting while she's out of work, which you can see here, where we created this company for her, and we call her company MC with a little X. And so for me, my name is Kelly Will, so it could be KW little baby X. If I don't have a company name, or my client doesn't, we actually typically create a name for a company. You own it, you're self-employed, you're in charge, you can name your company. You don't have to LLC it to name it. I think a lot of people don't know that. So if you're currently freelancing or doing some contract work, you're in between jobs, you lost your role and you ended up getting some freelance work, or you're working as an assistant for your neighbor, guess what? You own your own company now. Create a space for it at the top of your resume, if it makes sense. And so this person really was doing very much real freelance work. Again, I've changed a lot of the names of the companies and things. I've redacted a whole lot of information and disguised it. But this person really was doing real work for real clients. And so we created her little consulting business, and that is the top section on her resume. So that is her first experience on her resume, as you can see right here. The last thing we'll talk about is the summary here at the top. This is somebody who is in marketing and communications. So if you haven't figured that out reading this resume, this is a marketing and comms resume, primarily comms. And you can see, here we have more bullets on some of those first front page things because they were really big deal items. Right? This is someone who really did step in as interim head of comms for an organization, global organization. That's a big deal. We then separated that out into a very specific section of its own. And then as you go further down the resume, less bullets. And then we get to the education. And if you do have languages in your back pockets. You speak, you are multilingual. Certainly you put them in the bottom of your resume, and my clients, we typically put a little asterisk and then languages, and we place the languages here. Okay. Now, something to note here, if it's at the back end of the resume, if it's on page 2, remember what I said, they're basically scanning page 2 to see your education. And so they'll notice that, right? They're going to see their eye will quickly scan education, and then they'll quickly hit languages. So they really will notice that. They won't miss it. Almost everybody's going to quickly scan to your page 2, if there is a page 2, to see your education and to get a sense of, you know, if you have some secondary education. Okay, now we're going to move on to another resume. So you can scan another one. You can jot down notes on these bullets. And we will talk about the next resume. Okay. So let's see. Here we are in the award-winning resume. So this is a client who won a lot of awards. This is another marketing resume. They're not all going to be marketing and comms, I promise. I think this is the last one. But this is a really talented award-winning person. So if you have won awards in your work, whether it's for the company that you work for, and so the company has awarded you, or you have won awards because of campaign work that you have done for other companies and clients, anything that has garnered you awards should obviously, please feature it in your resume. And it's amazing to me how often I'll be on a call with a client and they'll say, oh yeah, I won an award for blah, blah, blah. And it was never in their resume. I never had any idea until they said that. And it was like our third session together. Awards are so, so valuable. Like if you've won an internal award for your company, drop it in a bullet. It's often for my clients. It's often I drop it in the last bullet of that section, of that work section, or I'll drop it in the front bullet at the end of the front bullet. So I'll throw up a semicolon back here after CEO and write awarded or won ... Okay, that brings me to another point, past tense versus present tense. Generally speaking, if you're working in the job currently, all of the bullets will be in present tense. So if it's your present job, typically those bullets will be in present tense, and then all your other jobs will all be past tense, ED tense bullet lines. It's my preference. You know, you can do this a multitude of ways. It's really up to you, but make sure you're consistent. That's really my biggest thing. So for my clients, I typically go with present tense if they're in the job currently, and then all their other past experiences go with an ED, a verb tense ending that is past tense. So it's up to you. Just please be consistent, and do remember consistency throughout the resume is key. Obviously you don't want any mistakes in your resume. Okay. As you saw, maybe you've been able to look at those bullets a little bit here for this person. This person has been in the market less, I believe, than the last person that we were looking at. So this person graduated in 2011. And so there's just a little bit less experience on here, but you'll notice how I feature promotions. Now, this is one way to feature promotions so that you don't have a section for every single job you've held at a company. It's possible you'll see in another resume that I break them up ever so slightly differently. If you've been at the same company for a really long time, like 10 years, 12 years, 14 years, you've been promoted 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and maybe that's your only place of work, right? You've worked at one company, then I will break those up, and you will see that in a minute coming up in another resume. But this is a very chic, tight, quick way to show promotions. It's impressive. It's easy to see this person's growth and to see the dates of growth, which is also impressive, right? In 6 years, 4 different titles, going from a manager level all the way to a senior director level. Very easy to see the value in that person right away. So showcasing promotion in this way, I love. Remember, you've got seconds to catch someone's eye. This is a way to catch their eye. The text is broken up. You don't have all of these sections with bullets under every single one of these titles. That would be crazy anyway, because we'd have 4 sections with tons of bullets. It would be too much. And so instead, we have, all of these bullets now denoted into this one section that has all the promotions. Now, something I imagine a few of you are wondering, and I hope to answer some questions before you ask me them at the end, is, well, like, what are these bullets related to? Which job title? So for the most part, they are related to the most senior job title. I typically hold the most senior work that person has done in the bullets that we're featuring. But I will occasionally pull work that they did elsewhere in those other job titles. And sometimes it's really impressive and it's maybe why they got promoted. And so I will put that in a bullet. And often I'll even say in the first bullet, initially hired for X, promoted for Y. And you're probably getting a sense of my bullets, hopefully now, if you're actually reading the bullets that you're seeing on these resume templates. And hopefully what you're noticing are a few things. One, numbers, right? Typically you would write out 1, you would spell it O-N-E. On resume, you can beat back a lot of rules, right? I'm a writer, right? I wrote and had to follow like the AP guidelines. We don't do that on resume. I'm able to break all the rules in writing on resume. I will get rid of words that we don't need. Most bullets are sentence fragments. Like, don't assume that a bullet on a resume needs to be a proper sentence. It doesn't. It can be a sentence fragment. I do not write out the words for numbers under 10, which you typically would if it's like you see 5 here in the first bullet. I use the digit 5 for that. Numbers break up the text and they pull people's eye. And so their eye, the recruiter's eye, or the hiring manager's eye, is immediately drawn to the numbers on the page, and boom, you've got them reading your bullet. We want that. Because I'm sure you've heard that people spend seconds literally reading a resume and typically biasing somebody out for any number of reasons. So bring in numbers. We cheat the system again and again in my resume bullets. And a lot of my clients will be like, can I do that? Is that okay? It is. We're going to cheat the system. We're doing sentence fragments. We're not following all of the rules of building proper grammatical sentences. That's not what resume is about. It's to get the most important information to showcase the real story of what you've done at each job you've held really quickly, really efficiently. Now, if you work for really big names, like here you see, even though I swapped in and swapped out some different company names, the name that was sitting here before was enormous. And so I picked another behemoth to replace it. And I used Amazon to replace that company name in here. If you're working with huge partners in other industries, in other verticals that are pretty well-known, recognizable names, bring those into your resume. Bring that color into your resume. Make your resume stand out. Help them see you at work every day. That's really the key of my client resume. It's like, if I read this bullet, can I kind of envision what that person does? All right. Now, if you scroll down, so this person, it felt like they had quite a short resume, but in fact, they have a very long resume because they have won so many awards in their career. So this is one of those instances where, because this person was so highly awarded for some of the work that she did, that it made sense for us to have a very long resume. And it did pay off. She is in a dream job right now. Okay, so we're going to bop right out of there, and we're going to move on to the next one. Let's see, where are we with time? 8:36. Okay. Let's see. This one is someone just out of college. So in this instance, and this was done in late 2021. So this is a little bit of an old resume. But this person had just graduated a few months prior, did have an early part-time sort of freelance job out of college for this company called Trilogy. That was really her only real work experience. And it was sort of like a paid internship. And the boss was really comfortable. She had given her a very real title, even though she didn't always work full-time. It did function like a real job, and her boss was very comfortable with this resume. Of course, I want people, to share it with whoever's going to be their referral. And she shared it with her boss and said, are you comfortable with this? And the way that I featured it. So this is somebody right out of school, and their education was at the top because in the time it was late 2021 and she was getting a job. But now her education subsequently has moved to the bottom of her resume, and her new job has gone to the top. She is in a one-page resume, and you can see she held a few internships while she was in school. We gave those one bullet. Sometimes I don't even have a bullet for internships, and sometimes I don't have internships at all on a resume. If you've been in career for over a decade, and we don't have space, there's absolutely no reason, right? We want a nice, tight, compelling story. And then, of course, again, this is somebody just out of college, so we included some leadership experience at the very bottom to fill the space just a little bit and give a little bit more color to her leadership experience. So that's a just out of school resume. Let's move along. Fitness manager. So this is right. I don't assume that everybody has a corporate job. I think it would be ridiculous if I was only speaking to that audience. This is somebody who was an assistant manager at a fitness facility and went on to be promoted there. So this is an instance where I did break up the promotions into two sections. And that's because it was her only job experience out of school. And so in this case, right, because we needed to showcase a little bit of in-depth work experience. We wanted to get her a very good job in her next chapter. I chose to separate these two experiences and not show them in the collapsed promotion. You'll also note that most of my resumes, except that young person right out of college, they have some kind of a tight little summary statement at the top. And I call this sort of like your bridge statement. And it is really something that if you're going to have it there, it's important because it bridges perhaps what your previous title was or your current title is to where you're trying to go next. And so this person was a general manager of a fitness facility, and she was going on to seek out project manager and program manager and account manager roles. And so we created this statement at the top where we bring in either the title of the role she's going for specifically with each resume she sends out, or we create a hybridized title where we sort of bridge the gap so they don't immediately think, oh God, she's a GM at a fitness center. She's never going to be for us. We want them to read the bullets and see that this person is in fact a program manager, that she built and managed programs and accounts. And so I create these sort of bridge executive statements. And then of course, oftentimes they are not executive statements, and they are for people that are in manager level roles and associate level roles and very early in their career roles. But often a bridge sort of intro statement summary is powerful if done right. If it's super, super duper cliche and super long, probably not going to be a winner. I'm imagining some of you will have some questions about that. So hang tight and hopefully we'll be able to answer them all. Okay. I think that covers that one. We'll move right along. So it's another one pager. Okay, this person is a chef who I very recently worked with. And, he does the same thing every day, right? He's cooking in the kitchen. And though some of his titles have changed, realistically, he kind of does the same thing again and again. So in talking to him, I decided that we did not need bullets. for every single head chef and chef position he had held, right? Everybody knows what he's doing. So we instead chose to feature his titles in all caps because they were very impressive. He's held very impressive titles. And the companies he worked for were less impressive than the title. And so we decided to kind of switch the strategy, and we kept this bottom half listing, just a quick list of places that he'd chefed for. And we decided that his top 2 experiences would be built out. And I built them out because they were quite interesting when I got to know him. And I learned, that he was creating incredible food service for a handful of very famous television and films, TV and films in the industry. And so I thought, well, that's going to make for a very interesting story, right? Big demand. He's got to manage a pretty complex budget to do that. And we dove in, and I found out, he had created some really interesting things that were really popular with some of the most famous people on the sets of these films and TV shows. And so I thought, well, I guess we'll create a bullet about that, right? This pop-up kitchen concept he created was, originated for a Marvel film and ultimately went on to be used for some other films and some other pretty famous TV shows. And then the same thing with his second. All right, moving right along, next resume. We already did that one. University of Florida. Oh, yes. Okay. This is a recent client update. So this is a client I've worked with for a long time, and we just did a 2023 update for his resume in case he would like to go pursue a new role at some point in 2023. And so we added his new work, and he is an assistant dining director at a university. He came out of Waffle House. So he was a manager at a couple of Waffle Houses. And ended up going on to become an assistant dining director at a university after working with me. And he's been in that role now for over a year. And so it was time for him to update his resume. This is a great note for all of you. Once you get a refreshed resume for 2023 going for yourselves, keep it up to date from that point forward. I think all of us, I'm just as guilty as anybody else of my early resumes were so awesome. Young Kelly had a banging resume. And as I got older in my career and further in my career, I stopped updating a resume, and, you get a job through a friend connects you and they just use your LinkedIn and they don't need a resume. Keep a resume, keep it updated. It'll make your life so much easier, and keep cutting it back further down the resume. And then as you add your new experience to the top. Okay. You'll notice up here, this person has an MBA, and I dropped that right up in that top summary so that they can't miss it. A master's degree is really, really valuable. Obviously a graduate degree as well, but a master's degree, incredibly important. So definitely highlight it up there in your summary if you have it. And so this is a 2-page resume. Now, one other thing I want to talk about here is that in this person's case, he didn't work for Amazon, which you're seeing on your screen. He worked for another very famous company. And normally I would actually not go earlier than about 2022. Most of my client resume, 2002, most of my client resumes, I try to avoid going back beyond 2001, 2002. Most of them start 2002 or later. We just drop things off of resumes because it's just simply too far back, and age bias is real, and I don't want any of my clients to face that. And there are many ways to sort of just drop that off. Your resume should not have everything you've ever done in life, in career on it. It's not possible. So, it is at your discretion to slice it off. But in this person's case, I allowed 1998 on here because it was such a famous company that he worked for, and he really was in a very important department there and was promoted within that department at that very famous company, that it did make sense. And since he was there from 98 to 2007, it did make sense to include it on his resume. All right. Last resume, and then we're going to go to questions, and we're going to bump LinkedIn strategy to the next session. So last resume here is someone who had a job, was at the same company he's been there for 15 years, almost 16 years now. And great organization, but ultimately, he came to me with a resume that had one title on it, which was his current title. And it showed him doing that one job title for the 16 years. That is going to be pretty tough in this market, right? We are no longer in a market where, it's highly valued that someone stays in a job at the same place for 16 years, right? People actually do want to see diversity of work. Doesn't mean they necessarily want to see somebody in a new job every year, although that happens a lot. And my clients are just as successful getting jobs. You can easily, work around that. But there is a lot of bias. Like if you've been in the same job for a really long time and you haven't been able to showcase promotion or change in title for that long extended period of time, and I'm talking like 10 years plus. And so he came to me with a resume that had one title, 16 years. And I thought, oh gosh, he's not going to be able to enter the 2023 market competitively. People aren't even going to consider him. And so for his resume, we split it up. And originally he didn't even think he had been promoted, which I think is how a lot of people think until I start to dig in and talk to them about, well, what was your exact title when you started? Oh, really? Oh, well, they hired me actually first as an intern. Hey, guess what? There's your first title and you were promoted because you're not an intern 16 years later. So through really thinking about, your career history and that time at that place, we really do need to think back, did I change titles there? And in the end, it turned out that he's had really 4 different titles that we were able to build into his resume. And I chose to split them and go 2 and 2. And then he has one other job, his first role out of school. And then he had publications on here. I just redacted those because there was too much information for me to change and redact. And then of course he has his power summary at the top. Hey everybody, welcome back to those who have come back. I'm excited if you've chosen to come back tonight. This is a series, so we're building on top of what we're learning. Tonight's focus is going to be on LinkedIn first, and then we're going to talk about your actual deployment strategy. So what you are going to do with your updated resume and your updated LinkedIn and how you're going to deploy it in the 2023 job market. So it's going to be a bit of a marathon again, just like last week was. Luckily, these are going to be recorded all for you, and you can access them and watch them as much as you need when Brittany sends them out, when all 3 sessions are done. So we'll all have access to them, which I'm thrilled about because I know that I'm giving you a ton of information, and I want you to be able to go back and access it. So moving right into tonight, you'll see that I'm screen sharing again with you. This is the best way that I can show you all how to do this stuff because it's fairly complex. If you can't see it, it's very confusing what I would be talking about. So for tonight, we shall start on LinkedIn, and I have permission from 2 of my clients to share their actual LinkedIn profiles. And so they have granted me permission. So you all are allowed to know that they are my clients because normally everyone has total privacy when you're my client. Obviously, it's just like a lawyer. Everything is top secret and what you say to me stays with me. But we're going to start with my dear Patrick, who is a wonderful human being and dear client of mine. And he has most recently been working for Apple. And so we are going to look at his LinkedIn together first. Now, the actual first thing that I'm going to show you before I talk through what we did on Patrick's to clean up his LinkedIn is Up at the top of your LinkedIn, you will see that you have this Me drop down for your settings menu. And so what all of my clients know is that the very first thing before we even edit anything on LinkedIn is we need to check one particular setting, and you all should do this for yourselves. So go to settings and privacy, select that. On settings and privacy, you'll go to your visibility down here on the left-hand column. You're in the visibility menu now. You're going to go to the second visibility menu, this one, your LinkedIn activity. And here where it says share profile updates with your network, you want to make sure that is off. It should be off all the time. It should never be ever turned back on. There's no reason to blast out updates to your network when you make edits on your profile. It's such like an old school thing. It's something we were doing like way back in the early Facebook days, early LinkedIn days. We don't do that. We definitely don't want to be blasting that perhaps we've edited our photo or we've been laid off, so we've ended our time at a certain company. All of those things we absolutely should not be blasting out. So turn this off. Share profile updates with your network should be off at all times. Never turn it. There's no reason to turn it back on, in my opinion. Okay, now we're going to go back to Patrick's LinkedIn page. And so here we are, we're on Patrick's LinkedIn, and when I'm working with clients, we just go top to bottom. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to take you top to bottom through some of the really key edits I think you should all be seriously considering doing for your LinkedIn. And there's a few variations, right? Every person's LinkedIn is just a little bit different, and it kind of depends where they're working now or where they've been laid off from, or if they own their own company. And so I'm not going to show you as many variations like I did on the resume. I'm going to show you 2 variations tonight on LinkedIn. And so again, for your knowledge, Patrick has approved me sharing his information with you. And so we're looking at his LinkedIn tonight. Patrick has recently ended a very long-term contract with Apple. He was in contract for an 18-month period. And so now he is taking a small break during the holiday season, and he's deciding he may be able to go back to Apple. He may go out in the world and get another job. And of course, he's really interested in going to some, potentially another giant, since he's already been working for a giant. So that'll give you a little insight into what we're looking at here. I believe this is an image of the Apple campus that he has behind his headshot. You should all have a banner image here in this space. You should all have one. Now, what I typically recommend for clients, a great space holder here for that image is a cityscape, day or night. Cities drive energy and pace and vibrancy. So I say a city you love in the world, day or night, make sure it's beautiful. You can pull it off of Google Images, save it to your desktop, upload it into the banner space. And I say, do that until you find an image that looks beautiful there, right? So if it crops poorly, that's not the image. Go back and find another image of that cityscape that you really like. And do that until you have a beautiful image that fits in the space. You do want to have a headshot. It can be less professional. It can be very professional. Both Patrick and myself, we do have professional headshots, but both of us, they were done for free. A friend of mine who's like very talented on Instagram, he took my shots against a wall with some good lighting, and he actually held a blow dryer to my hair, which I did not ask him to do. But a lot of you will have friends that, you can take a shot and have them take a shot of you against a brick wall, against a white wall, in a space with some good natural lighting is great, or a lot of, solid, this is my lamp next to my desk is pretty good artificial lighting. So you can take what feels like a professional image for free. You don't need to pay for it. But certainly the nicer the image, the better. You do want it to feel like a professional shot. Something that I want to just say here is this is not a place for a banner image to be a vacation image that you've taken yourself. I'll have a lot of clients, upload like a surfing image or a palm tree image. In my opinion, that's not the place for it. Like, this is LinkedIn. We're driving a professional, energetic vibe here. And so, I think a cityscape looks really good in the space. And it's fairly generic, it can be a beautiful image, but people really aren't focusing on it. They say, oh, that's a nice image, and they move along. You want an image. An image is another piece of engagement that does pull people in and say, oh, this is a real human being. And they've taken some time to create a nice holistic LinkedIn profile. Okay, now important stuff here. Under Patrick's name, you see that he has his headline. This is a really important note for all of you. I see people do this in their headline a lot. They put a sentence. They put a large sum of words together that are separated by semicolons or commas that like describe them. They put 18 different titles here. That is not what this is for. Your headline should be a functional title, right? And so integrated marketing and creative producer is a functional title. That is exactly what Patrick does. That's his expertise. And that's what he wants to continue doing more of. And that is a real title in the world, right? People recognize integrated marketing. It's very much a practical thematic in the marketing world, and producers and creative producers, are everywhere. So these are very common. This is a common titling. So somebody will read that and they will understand what he does very quickly. Functional title is important in the headline. It doesn't mean it has to be your last title or it has to be your exact title today. You can play with it a little bit. You can hybridize it a little bit. Right. His last title at Apple was flat producer. And so we wanted to pump it up a little bit because he wants to do a little bit more integrated marketing strategy from a higher level. But he still loves the creative production and being a part of the creative production process, and honestly, project managing the creative production process. And so we hybridized his producer title with all of his sort of expertise, and we created this functional title. So, really think functional title. And if you want to hybridize it a little bit and pump it up and add and do sort of like a dual title, that's okay. You want your city and state. And if you live in a metropolitan region, pick the city, right? So for anyone that's actually in Arlington Heights, I would actually say you could pick like Chicago metropolitan area, because you are in the Chicago metro. And it's just like, it helps you sort of in SEO search for recruiters. Obviously Chicago is going to be a larger space than Arlington Heights. So if you are in a metro area, I typically say, use the central metro area. And so he used New York. Moving right along, you will see that he also has his college up here. Now, since he is not currently employed, we do not have another icon under Nazareth College. Normally, if you are currently employed, you want to make sure that icon is showing up here too. So you want to make sure Nazareth or your college and your employment icon where you're currently employed is showing. He is not currently employed, so we only have his college icon. All these settings are right in that box with the pencil that you can edit them and make sure your university education is showing. Moving right along, make sure you add the About section. And the button to add your About section is also, there's a section up here. Obviously, I'm on Patrick's page, but on my page, there's a button that says Add a Profile section. I click that and I find About. It's in the core profile sections. Add an About section, and that's where that summary right off your resume goes. We want to create a matching system here between the resume and the LinkedIn. And so this is an important moment to bring a piece of the resume to the LinkedIn. We're not going to copy the whole resume to LinkedIn, but here we're going to bring the About that we wrote. So that like powered up summary statement that's sitting at the top of the resume goes right here in your About. Nice, quick, brief statement of you. All right, we scroll right along. And we now move into the experience section. And this is a very important section. For Patrick, again, we're owning that he is not currently employed. There's nothing wrong with that. I want everybody to remember and take a breath. we are in a sort of, I think we're still kind of mid-pandemic, but a lot of people say post-pandemic, right? We're in a post-pandemic era. And in a post-pandemic era, right, where, we've come out of a very intense period of the pandemic at the very least, that really changed everything. It was like the great equalizer. So a lot of people, as we know, some of you may have been laid off during the pandemic. I'm sure that you knew people that were laid off because of the pandemic. A lot of my clients were laid off in the pandemic. A lot of people went into the pandemic without a job. They were unemployed. And then, oh my goodness, they were unemployed for another 6 to 8 months because of the pandemic. That's all okay. It's no big deal. In so many ways, the pandemic was an equalizer in the job market. And so it made it fine for there to be breaks in work on your resume. It's not a big deal anymore. It used to be like, oh God, she has, what did she do for those 3 months 5 years ago? Nobody thinks that anymore. Nobody thinks anything of a weird span of time where you're unemployed. Nobody thinks anything of you taking some time off to take care of yourself or your family. It's very common. I think I said this last week, but I have a lot of clients that have saved up money so that they could take their own pay themselves to take a 6-month sabbatical and step away from work, quit their job and say, I need 6 months off, whether it's for me or my family or my friends, and I'm helping someone. A lot of people have done that recently, and that's fine. It's no big deal. So if you have done that, don't worry about it, right? Patrick, we're happy to own that his contract with Apple ended in September. Now, this was a major contract. This was 18 months, consistent full-time work. And companies like Google, Apple, the giants, particularly the giants, especially Google and Apple, do a ton of contract employment. Like 50% of their workforce is contract. And so because I know that, and he knows that, we chose to put the contract moniker here next to Apple under his creative producer, under his title at Apple. Don't do that for full-time work. Everybody just assumes a job is full-time if you haven't marked it. I wouldn't even do that for part-time. You don't need to put those monikers on every single, oh, this was contract, don't worry about that. We put contract in this very specific case here because it's Apple and everybody knows that's, in that space, like 50% of the Apple workforce is contract. The same for Google. Like over 50% of Google's workforce is what we call shadow force, contract. So for those two, it's very widely known and we marked it as contract. In general, you don't have to do that here. For a lot of my clients, I showed you, I think on the resumes last week, if they were on contract, I typically put it into the first bullet, right? I'm not trying to be inauthentic or lie. We put it typically in the first bullet is where we usually put it, on contract for 9 months, contracted for 12 months to run XYZ. But this is a unique situation. If you're at one of the giants and they have a large contract workforce, it's okay to put contract. And so we chose to do that here. Within the description, you see it says Apple TV. I decided that we would denote that because, right, Apple has a large slew of products, and the work that he was doing, he would like to continue in the entertainment space as a creative producer and integrated marketing lead. And so we did put Apple TV Plus because he wants to continue in the entertainment space. So we did put the vertical business that he worked on at Apple because Apple has some major business verticals there. Now, if you move on and look further down, we have Droga 5. This is a fairly known advertising agency that he worked at. And here we decided to put his major clients because they were so big. He had Google and Meta, right? And now he's working at Apple. So I'm thinking whenever I'm working on each individual's LinkedIn and we're deciding what we're going to do, I'm thinking, wow, those are really big clients. And that's why he got the role at Apple. So it would make sense to add them on LinkedIn so that someone, if they scan his LinkedIn, they can see within seconds Wow. Okay. So he was at Apple, and before that he was at Google, Meta, worked on Accenture. Those are three pretty well-known businesses that everybody instantly recognizes. He also won a Bronze Clio, which is a really famous agency award for spots that he did for two Meta spots. So 2 ads that he did for Meta won awards. And so companies they want those awards. They want their advertising agency to win them awards. And so that is something that is engaging when people look at a resume or they look at a LinkedIn. And so I decided to add those 2 items there. He was promoted at Droga, and typically on a promotion, I never ever put anything in the first job or the earlier jobs before the promotion. I put nothing in the description. And then if we scroll further, you'll see that again, he's at an account here. McCann is another ad agency. And here again, he had some pretty large, well-known clients, obviously some recognizable names right there. And also he was on a team that won another Clio there. So we included it. Craftworks, we will scroll further. Again, he's at another agency. These are the brands he's at. And then Butler Till, another agency. Now, the thing with Patrick specifically, and this will be true for some of you, maybe not even on tonight, but watching this at a later date that we're on last week. If you do work in the ad agency space, the reality is that a lot of you want to go brand side. And this is a good way to do it by simply featuring and highlighting the quality of the best brands that you were able to work on. Now he's gone brand side successfully for Apple, and he would like to stay brand side. So we're driving that messaging of like, he's really worked on some great brands. He has a diverse background on a lot of brands. And then you scroll down and you see his education. If you've graduated cum laude or you've made Dean's List, even for just a semester or 2, that is worth adding. Those are 2 things very much worth adding down here in your education in the description. And something else worth adding is adding your university experience if you were lucky enough to go overseas and study overseas at a university overseas for a semester or 2. Good thing to feature down here. It's going to expand your networking ability. And so certainly add your university if you traveled overseas. And he currently is on the alumni board for his college. And so that is a worthwhile volunteering thing to keep there. If you have a lot of old stuff that you no longer volunteer for, start to drop those things off. But if you have something present that you volunteer for, certainly you can keep that and recent things that you volunteered for. If you don't have anything present that you're volunteering for, really decide how much of these and how old they are, if they should stay up there. People really don't look beyond that too much on LinkedIn. But you can have recommendations on LinkedIn, and we will talk about that in a moment. One additional thing that I want to talk about specifically on Patrick's is the year. Actually, I think I'm going to have to show you on mine, but notice that I've just shown his graduation year. You don't have to put in your year span for your years in college. And in fact, I tell most of my clients you should not, especially if you graduated in 2000 or 2001 or 2002, like me, there is going to start to be a little bit of age bias, and why not avoid that? You don't need to put, I don't need to put that I started college in 1997. My LinkedIn shows the year that I graduated only. And I generally recommend that for most people, except very young people who have just graduated college. Then you can put in the span, because it actually is valuable to get those years. So if you were in school from 2018 to 2022, drop the 2018 in there, people will see the 2018 before they see the 2022 most likely. And that is actually helpful for younger people. So there's lots of bias, unfortunately, that we have to kind of play around and dance around. And those are some ways to dance around the bias. Okay. We're going to move on to my dear Samantha's profile here on LinkedIn. We're going to zip through hers for a couple of minutes. Now, Samantha owns her own company, and it's called Set Solutions. And so if you own your own company and you are deciding that you would like to go back to the 9-to-5 world, you want to go get a job working for a company, that's great. You absolutely can do that. If you remember back to last Wednesday, we talked about how you create a specific, very much typical resume section on your resume that feels very real, right? Practical, functional job title, right? Instead of being a founder of your company, first and foremost, make sure your job title is functional to the work you want to do in the 9-to-5 world. And so for Samantha, she came to me as a founder and I said, hey, we gotta give you a functional title. And so we named her Head of Global Partnerships and Business Development. And those are the things that she did for her company. And those are the things that she wants to do in her next job. So it's really this idea of functional title. I think I talk about it almost more than anything else on resume, on LinkedIn. We have to have functional titles because those are titles people recognize, right? We need them to be able to recognize what we do that fast. Like they read the title and they're like, oh, I know what this job title means. I was talking to someone on Monday and he wanted to call himself Chief Dreamer. And I was explaining, like, in the market that we're in now, going into 2023, people want functional, right? They want to immediately understand what you do. And so I told him, I said, if you really are passionate about that idea of Chief Dreamer, then you get yourself a functional title, right? Head of production, comma, Chief Dreamer. So if you're super attached to that kind of like soft, more playful, more creative titling, do it at the end of the function. Throw a comma on there. Okay, so Samantha. Here's Samantha has, this is a case where palm trees are okay. She lives in Southern California. Obviously, y'all have a lot of palm trees down there. And so it is okay that she has an image of Los Angeles with palm trees and the sunset in it. It's a fantastic image. And she is a California person, so it really suits her. She has a nice headshot there. And then we scroll down and you see that we've got, her company up here, her university up here, right? She does not live in the center of Los Angeles. She is also Los Angeles Metro. So we have Los Angeles here. For her, we've got a little bit of a longer bio that I worked on for her. And we've got her bio here in the about. This is also at the top of her resume as well. And then here we have a description of what she has done at SET. So we used a little bit more of meat and potatoes from the resume. I decided to bring over kind of the whole first bullet and play with a little bit here to give a little better introduction of what she does at her company. Again, you see these clients, right? She's worked with some really big partners. Now, some of these are smaller projects, but she has worked with these groups. That's fantastic. And so we want to use these names, right? Because even if it's a small project or, it's a short project, she has done it for these clients and it's very impressive and built a business around it. And then as you scroll down, you'll see that her titles all support the title that the functional title we created at her company: Vice President of Partnerships, Vice President of Business Development, Director of Brand Partnerships. This is her background and her expertise. You'll see here, notice the promotions, the way that LinkedIn features promotions is really valuable, that little line. So again, always show your promotions. You saw last week how to show them on the resume. This is how you link them. LinkedIn will automatically link them together as long as you put the dates in just right, back to back to back. LinkedIn automatically shows your promotions and promotions. This is a very valuable visual. It's very easy for someone to quickly click on your LinkedIn and see very quickly, oh, wow, this person's been promoted. She was, previous experience. And for Sam, we went to her first job, which was an assistant to a pretty well-known party planner. And so we added that in because it seemed like a worthwhile, we would go back to the beginning of her career in 2002. Again, we talked about this on resume. Typically, we're not trying to put stuff before 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003 on resume. It's kind of like a good cutoff, like say, okay, I'm not going to show anything before 2002. I'll show 20 years of work experience, or I'll show 15 years of work experience. Really, 12, 14 years of work experience is really enough. But you can show up to about 20, but be real careful of going back into the 90s at this point, just to make sure that you're kind of dancing around any age bias that might exist if you can. It doesn't mean you didn't exist before 2000 and your career didn't exist, but you are not required to show every single thing you've ever done in life on resume or LinkedIn. There is no rule on that. So don't convince yourself you have to. You do not have to. Okay. Sam's education, again, we've got her graduation year only, so we only filled in one box, so great rule there. I tend to run with that just about for everybody except really young people, like I said. And she's got a few things here. She went to two fairly well-known schools within USC, and so we included those schools. And now here's a little tip for y'all. Brentwood School. This is a very well-known school, and so it widely opens up her network. Now, if you went to a very well-known or well-networked high school, it is okay to put it on here. Do not put the year, just flip it out. You don't need to enter it, let it be blank. But if you went into a highly networked school for high school, and there are lots of them. I know some clients have really famous Catholic high schools. Fine, that's great. Feel free to use your high school there if it was a really, this is a pretty well-known school and there's a great business network still, sort of connected out of it. Great. Brentwood School is one of those schools. So I allowed her to keep her high school. Now, I find clients that have their high school and I'll say, is this a pretty well-known high school? Is this a highly networked high school? Oh no, it's just, it's my smaller town high school. No need for that. You don't need that. University only. Important note here. Also for resume, I think I forgot to say this last week. Education. If you didn't graduate from college, but you took some college courses, that's fantastic. Even if you only took 1, 2, 3, 4, that is just fine. You're not going to put a year on your resume or on the LinkedIn because we don't want people to think that you graduated. We don't want people to think that you're lying, but you can absolutely put the university where you took courses in, and on your resume or here in the description, you can put the word coursework, capital C, colon, and then put some of the titles of the classes or the themes of the classes, right? If you ended up taking sort of 4 marketing or 6 marketing classes, that's great. Put coursework, colon, marketing. No graduation year. And of course, if someone asked, you would let them know that you did not graduate. You would not fill out an application and said that you graduated in a certain year, but you were absolutely allowed to use that coursework, and you should. Okay. All right. So any questions on that? Hold them for the end. We're going to move right along to really quickly setting your recruiter setting. And we're going to go to my profile. I just want to warn you all, don't use my profile really as a hard guideline. Remember, I'm not out here trying to get a job. I'm actually just simply telling a story of my career. Okay. So don't look at Kelly's LinkedIn and say I'm going to copy this. Don't do that. I have way too much information. Less is more information on LinkedIn. We just want to see really your experience. And if we need a couple of bullets to intro a job, that's fine. Okay, your open to work setting is up here. At least on mine, it's up here. Sometimes it's in the open to finding a new job. And so I click into my open to work setting. I don't have it turned on. I'm not looking for a job. Here you can have 5 job titles. Now this functions like SEO. So you want very specific, right? Let's say we're looking for Patrick integrated marketing. And so this is recruiter SEO. When recruiters are searching, we want to give them the biggest possible amount of word combinations possible. So it's okay, director integrated marketing, boom, pick it. Now add your next one. Let's see, VP marketing. Okay. And then we've got, I think, creative producer. We'll continue to use Patrick's. There's a creative producer. Let's see, brand chief brand officer, and then I have a fifth. So I come up with my fifth one. Now, these obviously have to be auto-populated. You can't type in anything. It has to be auto-populated by LinkedIn, which is a little bit irritating, but you just play with it until you get 5 titles. Always maximize this recruiter setting. All right, now workplaces, on-site, hybrid, remote. Check all 3 unless you absolutely don't work on-site. Okay. Hybrid, maybe you're willing to do a little bit of hybrid if they're close to you. Great. Check these 2 then. You do need to put job location. So on site, obviously it's going to be in the area probably you live in, or I have a client and she just said, you know, actually my parents live outside of Detroit and I would actually be open to moving back there as they're getting older. And so she put her current city, which is Portland, Oregon, and then she added Detroit as job locations on site. Now here's the thing for remote. You can repeat those locations, but then you should also add in United States. If you want to work potentially overseas, especially if you speak other languages, go ahead and add United Kingdom, add European Union, add any areas of the world, right? If you want to work in Hong Kong and you have familiarity there, make sure you add it here, like maximize this space, please. And then start date. This is important. Everybody hear me. Flexible. I'm casually browsing. That's always your vibe. You're always casually browsing. We never act desperate. Desperation really pushes people running from us. They can smell it a mile away. I'm flexible, casually browsing right now. Job types. Typically, most of my clients only select full-time. A few do choose contract and a few are saying, oh, I don't mind part-time or temp. That's fine. But for the most part, choose what your real dream is. Like, what is your target? A full-time job? Just select full-time. Also, really important final note here, choose who sees you're open to work. Do not put that green banner on your profile. Again, that sense of desperation actually pushes people away. Unfortunately, I don't think LinkedIn is doing a ton of research on this, but I have not seen a person get a job with that green banner personally. And I work with a ton of people. We always take it off. If I see a client has it on, I say, take that off. Recruiters only. So people using LinkedIn Recruiter, always pick that second one, recruiters only. And then you can add it to your profile. Okay. That's a wrap on that. Y'all can ask me some quick questions if you have to at the end. I'm sure you all have some questions you can ask me at the end. I'm going to try to save again 15 minutes for a fast round robin of questions. Okay, getting into strategy now. This is really important. In 2023, you should not be cold applying to jobs. That means you shouldn't be going to LinkedIn and applying to a job through LinkedIn. It's not a good idea. It's just not a good idea. The chance that your resume is going to get seen is like, oh, it's so fraction of a percentage point. It's terrifying. And the reason is we live in a digital space where everyone and their brother can apply to a job. Everyone can hit quick apply. Everyone can apply to a job and not be qualified for that job at all. And these recruiters are working their butts off at companies. They're trying to fill 30 different roles and they're getting flooded with referral links, okay? Links that are coming in from people at the company who have friends and acquaintances. And those are much better sources for that recruiter. The likely candidate is actually going to come out of the referral link pile rather than the cold application pile. And so the time spent on looking at all of the thousands of people that have applied cold to a job is incredibly limited. And it's incredibly limited that a human will be looking at it, right? Because now we've moved into this era where there's a lot of artificial intelligence systems. We spoke about this last week. Artificial intelligence systems are actually they're not wildly successfully smart yet. And so they make a lot of mistakes. And so you going in cold to a company is not the way we do it. My clients know we don't go in cold to companies in general. For the most part, we go through a referral link. And it doesn't matter if you don't know someone at the company initially, that's okay. So here we go. We're going to talk about how you're going to find a job and how you're going to go through the referral link system and get one, even when you don't know somebody at the company. So your first rule here, apply to 1 to 3 jobs each week that hit your confidence quotient, the 70-30 rule each week. So this is a game. I've gamified the system. All my clients play this. They ask themselves 3 questions to assess if a job is worth applying for. A, do I want to do this job every day at a 70% level or higher, right? 70% positive affinity, 30% negative. That's that 70-30 rule. So do I want to do this job every day at a 70% level or higher every day? If that's a no, you're totally wasting your time. Move on. There's a million jobs in the world for you. You don't need to apply to that one. Second question, do I like what this company is doing and want to learn more? Yes, I like what they're doing, or, oh, this seems like a really cool company, or, oh, this is a giant. I just want to work for a giant. Okay, great. So you've hit it. Final question. Can I confidently do this job at a 70% level or higher within 6 to 8 weeks of starting? This is your kicker. If you cannot say yes to this 70% level at 8 weeks, so 2 months into this job, do I know what this job description is talking about? I totally get it. I can sort of envision myself in the job doing it. If you don't know what that job description is talking about for half the job description, it is unlikely to me that you are going to hit the 70-30 confidence quotient. You probably do not have the confidence to interview for that job. You should absolutely not pursue a job that you can't read a job description and say, I could be doing this pretty easily at a 70% level within 2 months. That's your marker. This is a really important thematic, and I'm bummed that I have to like rush you through it so fast. But if you remember one thing from this session, that's how you decide how to go after a job. And it really is that simple. You don't need to ask yourself anything else but those 3 questions. If you hit a yes for those 3 questions, green light. You should immediately stop what you're doing and pursue. We do not batch job pursuit. We pursue one single job at the highest level we possibly can at a time. That means my clients are doing quality over quantity. They are pursuing 1, 2, or 3 jobs a week. If they are unemployed, they might be targeting 4 to 5. That's it. It's really, really hyper-targeted strategy here. Now, part 2 is really important. Where are you finding this sort of like, where are you finding these jobs? If Kelly's saying like, I'm not supposed to go to LinkedIn and cold apply, like, what do I do? Guess what? You're going to target what we call the company's first strategy about 70% of the time. You can play with that percentage, but I don't think that I would not be targeting a company's first strategy. You should be targeting companies you want to work for. Like, write a list down, keep the list going. You're out in the world, you're grocery shopping at Trader Joe's, and you're like, wow, I love Trader Joe's. I wonder what kind of corporate jobs they have. I wonder if they have like an HR representative job. Like, I would love to work for Trader Joe's. Great. Add Trader Joe's to your company's first target list. You're going to every 3 weeks look and see what Trader Joe's has going on their job boards. So you're going to go directly to company job boards, hopefully about 70% of your time. Now, you may need to flex that, and you may say, I do companies first about 50% of the time, and then I do look at Indeed, I do look at Glassdoor, I do look at LinkedIn. That's okay too. If you need to flex it, right? I can't tailor this to each of you because I don't know your individual stories. But companies first is typically what we're targeting now. We're saying, who do I want to work for? And now I'm going to rotate through those company job boards each week. Something else that's really important for my clients is that we actually set a timer on our phone. This is like Zillow. So this is like online looking at houses, and it's like online dating. Do not sit in the sea of job boards for hours at a time. You will become very, very depressed. I don't want that for any of you. I certainly don't want it for my clients who I work with every day. They come to me typically very depressed by what's going on in the job market. No need. Set a timer for 30 minutes. You're like, oh, today's Amazon. Great. I'm going to go to Amazon's job boards and I'm going to look for my keyword titles for 30 minutes. The timer goes off. I didn't find a job. That's okay. Tomorrow you're going to come back for your next 30-minute segment and you can come back to Amazon. You don't have to move to a different company. If you're doing the company's first strategy, you might spend a few days searching on Amazon's job boards to see what's going on and what's new. Once you go through Amazon, you find a role, you're not going to come back to Amazon next week, right? You're going to give it a couple of weeks. Now, you found a role on one of these job boards. Also, one resource I wanna point out, if you really like the startup space, hopefully you've heard about Built-in. You have a great one in Chicago, Built-in Chicago, Built-in New York, Built-in Austin, Built-in Los Angeles. This is a website created specifically for really well-funded startups. If you would like to work in the well-funded startup space, the Built-in website system is amazing. Consider using this as one of the places that you go regularly to see what's going on in the startup space. Okay, moving along, this is really, really important, right? So, well, Kelly, what do I want to go after this job, but you said I can't just cold apply. What do I do? All right, you find a role that hits your confidence quotient. You do a quick check on LinkedIn at the company page and go to the people header of the company page, right? So you go to Amazon. If you look at Amazon and you go to Amazon's company page, you'll see right up top that there's people you know. I'm going to show you this now. Let's see. I'm on Amazon. All right. Some of you will be connected to people at the company that you didn't even realize. Some of you will have no connections. Here, it looks like I have about 31 connections at Amazon. So I would look at those connections and I would, well, LinkedIn isn't working there, but that's okay. I would look at those 31 connections and see, is there anyone there that I actually know that I could ask for a referral link in those 31 connections? I can guarantee you that I would know one of those people and I would send them a referral link request via LinkedIn or email if I knew them personally enough to have their email. However, most of the time, I'm going to assume that you, in fact, have nothing here on this line. You have no connections at the company, right? Let's say it's Google and you don't know anybody at Google. So you will come here, and if you look at these tabs on the company page, you will see there's a people tab. You will tap the people tab. You will then be shown the employees that LinkedIn says, hey, you may know these people. You may be connected to them, or there's a reason you may want to connect to them. And so my clients know that they're going to sort of slowly go through these people and they're going to look at people's titles and they're going to search and they're going to spend time looking for people that they should hit the connect button for, right? So clearly I've done this and I've connected with Lisa. She hasn't connected back with me. That's fine. I zip through and I start making connections with people that make sense. Something that's really important here on my note is this part. This is a great time and place to start making a lot of connections at each company. Make anywhere from 6 to 30 connections at that company. There are no wrong people to select, but do try to target people with titles you understand and folks you would really like to be connected to. So please try to take it a step further and think, does it make sense? You know, is this person in the marketing space? Especially at these giants, right? They're huge. You know, you having a real sense of like who works on some small, narrow vertical at Google, it's not going to be that easy. Like we can't guarantee that their titling is that easy that you're going to be able to find somebody that works on that vertical that you want to apply to a job for. But make connections with people at Google. Now, part 4 is really important. It says, do not send a note, just send the connection request. You can follow them if that message pops up, but always, always hit connect. Now, if you are having trouble getting access to the connect button, you may need to upgrade to LinkedIn Premium. Right now, my clients are not really having a lot of trouble with that. Like an old strategy that we used to run, we needed to have premium to have access to the network more. But most of my clients are connected enough now that the sort of web of their network on LinkedIn is enough that they can make connections on that people page very easily. But if for any reason you're finding like it's very hard to actually get the connect button, because LinkedIn won't always give you the connect button if you're not sort of a certain degree of connect to that person, then you may need to upgrade to premium, and you would only do it for the couple of months that you're job searching. You would then turn it back off once you get your job, but it can be an investment that you think about if you are having trouble having access to that connect button. Okay, Now, and I just want to caveat this, like I have a lot of connections on LinkedIn. I've been very active in that space. So when I go onto a page, like that spider web of LinkedIn connections and second and third degree connections is pretty dense. That won't always be the case. So you may need to consider paying for premium if you're having trouble. Step 5 is a really important note. Cold applying into giant companies or very recognizable or popular companies, Amazon, Apple, Google, Zillow, Nike, Coca-Cola, Amex, is almost useless. You must take the time to connect with people there, and then your goal is to ask them for a referral link. All right, there's 3 options you can take. I'm going to just very lightly talk through them, and we'll pick up here in the final session next week because this is such an important strategy. I'm not going to not give it to you. Right? You know someone at the company is option 1, right? So for me, I definitely know that I know someone at Amazon. So if there was a great job at Amazon, I know that I would be sending them a note directly to ask for a referral link. That's going to be your easiest option. A lot of the time, it's not going to be an option. You won't know someone at the company. So in that case, you're going to need to move to option 2 or option 3. And option 2 is, you know, it's one of the giant companies, or it's a very large company or a very popular company. You don't immediately know someone at the company, but you're pretty sure they probably have a referral link system. And honestly, most companies over 1,000 people at this point definitely have referral systems. And even some smaller companies have referral link systems. So it's never going to hurt you to ask for a referral link and find out that they say, oh, we actually don't have a referral link system. That's okay. If you've got that door open and they say that to you, you're winning. You've got, boom, you've got somebody talking to you inside the company. You're going to maximize that. And we'll talk about that next week. And then the third option is, this is a very small company or a very medium-sized company. They definitely don't have a referral system. And so you're going to have to go in a little bit more creatively there. And there's a little bit of a cold apply there that you'll learn about next week. So next week, we'll pick up on these like finer points of how you write these notes to go in and fine tune and sort of flag people down within the company and say, hey, I saw your job. I see what you need. I do what you need. Can you send me a referral link? So we're going to wrap there tonight. And now we're going to open up the chat for questions. So if you have questions, send them in. We're going to try to round robin, just like we did last week, as quick as we can. Brittany, you ask me the question and I'll answer as efficiently as I can.
All right. I'm going to start from the top. The first question that came in was, why not use a more personal photo? They're talking about that banner.
Right. Well, just remember, this is a professional space, right? And so you want something to feel very professional, and you want, you know, if you take really good professional photos of cityscapes, great, use that. Or you take really stunning photos. You can personalize it, but generally, like, this is not the place to put a vacation photo. I generally wouldn't put a picture of my family. Honestly, I wouldn't. It's just a professional space, and I want it to be kind of generic, right? There's a lot of bias that comes in the second somebody looks at anything. They don't mean it. It's not even done on purpose. It's subconscious. And this is a place where you want to keep it kind of generic, right? You don't want them thinking too hard about your banner image at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay. John, do you want to unmute and ask your question, or do you want me to read it? Get a little more interaction.
Oh, I think we asked the question about the education. I think we got the answer.
Great.
Okay.
I think you should read, Brittany. We're pretty short on time here.
I can. Okay. Was the company, okay, this customer is saying that they were with the same company for 32 years. And most recent position change there was in 1998. Should I only include that experience or prior positions too?
That is a great question. That is challenging. Well, you are a unique case. you're probably going to need to include those other experiences because you were promoted there. So you probably would need to include those.
Okay. The other question is, what is a referral link and why would someone you don't know do it for you?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We really haven't gotten to that part of the strategy yet, but if you watch my screen, I'm going to scroll down. And I teach you here how to write an introduction of yourself in the referral link. And so I teach you how to write this like really sharp, using your resume bullets, how to write these really sharp introductions of yourself. And we'll do that next week. Because you're going to write this very brief, very sharp note that says, for example, here's a referral link note. Actually, this is a better one here. Stranger on LinkedIn. Hi, David, my fellow NYU alum. Thank you for accepting my connection request. I have a quick ask. This morning, I spotted the sales and marketing ops manager role on Google Careers. I put together a brief note below to describe what I'm doing currently that lines up with the role. My ask, would you be willing to send me a referral link for this role? I truly appreciate your consideration and help. And then of course, paste the link to the role here. And then this is where you introduce yourself at a very high level, showing what you do that matches directly to the job. And so that person can read that note. They can take 2 seconds to scan your LinkedIn and you've done a nice cleanup on your LinkedIn. And remember, that's money in their pocket if you get hired by the company. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to send a referral link to a stranger when they can send a tight note like that really introduces them at a high level, basically doing what that company needs in that role.
Okay. Next question. How can you tell the degree to which you've reached all-star status on LinkedIn?
Oh, I never worry about that. It's not, this is just like a random, LinkedIn thing. Don't worry about it too much. Just do the things that we talked about. If you're not employed, and this is a huge problem I have with that ridiculous rating system, if you're not currently employed, you're not going to be allowed to be an all-star. That's ridiculous. Like tons of people are unemployed for many, many different reasons and choices. So I pay no attention to that system.
Okay. Next question is, if you have advanced education, should you include both colleges' icons along with current company?
Of course. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Next question about the 70% rule. What if I know how to do almost everything in the job description, but then they require a special software which I have not used, but I know I could master it?
Yeah, you should absolutely apply. But before you even do that, or as you're applying and then you get your application, you get the referral link going in through the system, you do need to familiarize yourself with that software, even if it just means that you Google around about it for 30, 40, 50 minutes, you maybe go on Reddit about it. You get on Twitter about it and look at the hashtag for that software, like really familiarize yourself with that software, look at screenshots of it on Google Images. Like the internets give us everything we kind of need. You can do a quick deep dive and become a light expert without even using it pretty quickly. And then you could say, oh, this is like XY system, which I used at XY place, right? You're like, oh, I use Basecamp, which some people know is kind of like a project management software-ish software. And you're like, oh, this is like Basecamp. I get it. I know what this is doing. Yes, absolutely. Also, if you are certified, if you have like pretty fancy certifications, just like your languages, which we talked about on resume, another way to do that is to do an asterisk certifications : under your education. Like it can be even a little bit of a smaller font, right? Because it's not really as important as your university education necessarily, but just like your advanced degrees, if you have very specialized certifications like Scrum Lead, they've recently changed Scrum Master to Scrum Lead. So if you have like Scrum Lead certifications, or formerly known as Scrum Master certifications, those are valuable. You can add those under your education, and you can add there's a certification section that you can add on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll take this last question. How do we connect through LinkedIn Premium with someone from our alumni association?
You don't have to be on premium to do it. I think you can, I went to Indiana University and I can like click into Indiana University, and just like I clicked on the company, I can see the people at Indiana University, and it will show me like people you may know, and then people I don't know, and people that they don't think I know. You can connect with anybody there. And also when let's say you find a job at Amazon, you go to the Amazon company page, and then you go and click on the people, Amazon will show you, if you have your university properly added to your LinkedIn page, connected to the right icon of, like for me, Indiana University's icon, Amazon will show me, like there's a section I can tap on in that people section that shows people that are alumni of Indiana University. And that is a top tier way to go. All right, this is going to be a blitz, so get ready for that. We'll cover as much as we can. The most important thing tonight is really this job seeking strategy, the actual job seeking strategy itself, and making sure you all have a good handle on that. So I'm going to dive back into that, spend the time that I need to spend on that. I may even open up questions with Brittany at that point once we finish the job seeking strategy. And then we'll see how far we can get into salary and talking about salary requirement and interview prep. All right. So, and at the very end, I will give you my contact information and talk to you about some of these documents and that how you can email me if you would like a couple of these resources. Okay, so diving back into my job seeking strategy, unfortunately, we are going to pick up kind of in the middle. So if you weren't here last week, wait until you get the video, take what you can tonight, and then you'll have the video in a month or so when Brittany's able to get it out. But ultimately, right, so we've talked about, your confidence quotient, asking yourself, like, how do I decide if this job is for me? That's step one, right? Asking yourself these three questions, A, B, and C. And making sure you do not apply to a job that doesn't answer, yes, I feel this way at a 70% level or higher for all three questions. The job is simply not for you if you don't hit that confidence quotient of, yes, I want this job. Yes, I'm interested in this company. And yes, I can competently do this job at a 70% level or higher within 6 to 8 weeks. If you don't know what 50% of the job description is talking about, it is probably not the job for you. You are wasting your time. Don't bother. And so just to reiterate, we set a timer on our phone, 30 minutes, 5 days a week of job searching. You should not be reading job boards for hours at a time. Bad idea. Please remember this. Of all the rules I have, my clients know they set the timer. It goes, when it goes off, they're done. If they didn't find a job, it's okay. If they found a job, immediately move it through. We do not batch jobs. So we don't wait until we have 2 or 3 jobs to apply to. We go one job at a time. It is really important that you take a critical, sharp, narrow targeted search after jobs that you really like. And that means taking the time when you find a job to say, this is a great fit for me. I am now going to slow everything down and I'm going to go step by step into pursuing this role at my absolute highest level. How you do that, right? We talked last week and we began to dive into this really specific strategy that I have, which is using LinkedIn to go to the company page, right? So you go to the company page and we're going to use Amazon for this. So I'm going to screen share. I'm going to let Jerry in the room. There we go. All right. Amazon. Let's see. Let's go to LinkedIn, right? So let's say you found a job at Amazon, right? And you don't immediately think you know someone at Amazon, right? It doesn't come to mind immediately. So I do this with clients a lot. I show them this a lot. So I go to Amazon's company page on LinkedIn, which is where I am right now. And here you see, I have quite a few connections that I apparently know that work at Amazon. Now, I know for a fact when I click into that, I do in fact know quite a few people. that work at Amazon. So if I found a job that I wanted to apply to at Amazon, I would click into my list and I would scroll through all these people that I know that it says I'm connected to on LinkedIn. And I would say, okay, who do I know best, right? Who's my best network into LinkedIn? So, right, critical level of thought, who's the best person to go to? Knowing that you can also then pick a second person, a third person. If that first person doesn't respond to you, or they don't really use LinkedIn, or you don't have their personal email, which is fine. It's okay. You'll just move on to the next person on the list. Well, they didn't respond. They're obviously busy or not using LinkedIn. Who do I move through next a couple days later? All right. Now we're going to pretend that this does not say this 30 connections work here that I know. And so we're going to say it's Amazon and I don't know anybody at Amazon. And so what do? I then go to the people tab. So see where my cursor is. I click the people tab. On Amazon's people tab, I am now shown a lot of people. I'm shown people that, are broken up by different things. I went to Indiana University in Bloomington here in Indiana. And so, I could go into this and look at people who've graduated from Indiana University. That is a great way to go. If you have attended a university, it is great to go through other alumni from that university that work at Amazon. For this purpose, we'll pretend that we don't have any of those connections. And so you continue scrolling down to this magical people you may know section. And my clients always say, like, Kelly, is it okay to do this? Are you kidding? This is exactly what this is all about. This is why LinkedIn has a people you may know section. This whole LinkedIn platform is about doing this, is about connecting with the people that you may know. And so you're going to go through all these people that LinkedIn is saying, hey, you may know these people, and you're going to carefully select people to connect to. And I'm just going to reiterate this one more time tonight, because I think it's really important that everybody hears this. There are no wrong people to select, but do try to target people with titles you understand and folks who you'd really like to be connected to, right? So don't really just throw spitballs at the wall, really do it wisely and think about who you'd like to target, what titles are interesting to you, and also kind of trust your natural instincts. Like, there really is an energetic level to this where you can click through and connect with a bunch of people that you're sort of like, oh, they went here. Oh, I looked at their profile and I saw something familiar there. Make some connections. There is a note here. It says make anywhere from 6 to 30. That might seem like a lot. It's not a lot. First of all, it's great to expand your LinkedIn network. A lot of people don't use LinkedIn. They don't like connection requests. They don't respond to notes, or they, check LinkedIn once every 3 months. Like, there's no guarantee that all of the people you connect with are going to ever even connect back with you. So there's no reason not to shoot for a larger target here. So this is the one time where I'll say quantity is okay. You may shoot for a large quantity, and that's why that number goes up to 30. It's not wild to make 30 connections at a giant organization. And this is just a reminder to anyone who didn't hear me say it last week, right? In 2022 and now 2023, more than ever, right? 2023 more than ever. Cold applying into giant companies or very recognizable companies, right? Even like a Venmo is owned by a larger company, but Venmo has remained small. Venmo is a famous name. Everybody wants to work at Venmo. So just because it's remained operating as a smaller organization, everyone and their brother is applying to Venmo, right? So any jobs, like cold applying to these jobs at recognizable organizations, you're 1 in a million. Do not cold apply. Okay. Then we move into the whole concept of you have 3 options to take. And option 1 and option 2 are all about getting you a referral link into the company. Now, option 1 goes back to that someone at the company already, right? Like I had 30 people at Amazon, and I know quite a handful of them would be willing to send me a referral link for a good job fit for me. And so option 1, right, is obvious. You go to the person you actually know. If you know them via email or you know them via text, right, go that route. But if you only have their connection information via LinkedIn, that's absolutely fine. you're going to go to them through LinkedIn, and you're going to send them a message because you're already connected to them. And you'll see, so this says, you're going to send a message asking for a referral link, asking them to bring in your resume for you. It's okay to just ask for the referral link. They'll tell you, oh, we don't really have a referral link system, but I can bring your resume in once you apply. So apply and then shoot me a note, and I'll make sure I forward your resume along. That's just as good as a referral link. But you always want to check with the people you may know first before you ever consider cold applying. Because a lot of times, if you've cold applied first, somebody can't go back inside the company and sort of like tag your resume as connected to them and move it through for you, right? So that's why the order of things is very important, right? The first thing we do is we're going to ask for a referral link, period, end of story. And you'll see, and I am willing to share this document with all of you. You'll be able to send me an email tomorrow and ask, and I'll send out a link to this document so people can see it, so that you all can see it. I don't expect you to write all of this down tonight. You will see that I have created, and we talked about this at the very end of last week's session, this referral link note. And the note looks like this. This is the body of the referral link note. Hi, David. I have a quick ask. This morning, I spotted the brand marketing design lead role on Google Careers. I put together a brief note below to describe what I am doing currently that lines up with the role. Would you be willing to send me a referral link for this role so that I can apply through you? I truly appreciate your consideration and help. Then you're going to paste the link to the role, because if it's an Amazon type of an org, they create the link connected to them, right? So you send them the link and they say, oh, great, let me now make a link for this person connected to me so they can come in through me. So you make sure you send them the link, and then below your signature is where you put this tight little zippy paragraph. And this is in the note, it's called your mini bio, but officially, this is my magical little game changer. This is called the middle paragraph match game introduction. And I have a whole page on my templates toolkit document here that teaches my clients how to write their own middle paragraph match game. Now, this is a match game that directly matches you and your experience to the job description. So this is not like a bio that you write once and then you just copy and paste. No, you will never do that. Hear me say that. You will not be copy and pasting this. You will create a new middle paragraph match game for every single note you send for referral link or a cover letter. Both of these types of things should have this tight, sharp introduction of you at the highest level, introducing you for the role they have, right? So showing you in an elevated place, doing what this organization needs in their job description. And I always teach people the trick to the match game is, first of all, you got to have a good resume. Because if you have a good resume, it makes your life really easy. You're comparing your resume to the job description. And it's like when we were kids in school and we drew a line from one list to the other list to make the match. My clients take an imaginary line in their head and they draw a line from the job description bullet to the bullet in their resume that matches. And then they kind of grab all those bullets in their resume, they drop them on a messy page, and then they narrow them down and they edit them and they cut away all the excess and they write a tight 4 to 5 total sentences. That's all you got. 3 to 5 is magical. 3 to 5 sentences total. A highly elevated brief match game scenario that directly matches them to a job. And in the document that I'm willing to share with any of you who email me, I have done this for 4 different clients here. So I've shared how I do it for them. Now, obviously, you're not going to see their resume, and I've redacted information here. But you have these examples, and I'll just sort of go back to our dear David here, right? And if we look at this one, the middle paragraph match game I used to match to this job at Google, is this. I'm currently the associate director for the eLight brand studio team, overseeing 2 designers across brand visual design and art direction, creating cross-promotional digital campaign packages, plus toolkits for internal department and external partner use. Prior to eLight, I was the design lead on the Amazon newsroom team for over 2 years. I managed the design department through cross-functional ideation, concept, and execution of all editorial and marketing assets for paid and organic, live events, and promotions. I also served as an illustrator, advancing innovative design and creating animation storyboards for interactive campaign elements. Now, what I can basically guarantee to you is this role had oversight of designers in it. They wanted visual design and art direction by the person. They're creating promotional digital campaign packages and like internal toolkits. And let's see, what else, right? Just this sort of basic content ideation of marketing assets and all the sort of versions of marketing assets you can have. This job obviously needed. And then I remember specifically when I did this for this particular client, she's very talented and has illustration background, and they had wanted that as sort of a bonus. And she actually could illustrate and animate, and she had those skills. So we wanted to make sure we got that in. So she was a direct match. It was so easy to do her note because I was like, wow, you are a direct match for this role. And we carved up a note tying her exactly to the job. Now, here's the thing about the referral link that someone asked last week at the end of the session. That was such a great question. You know, why would somebody give me a referral link? Now, first of all, if there's someone you know, that's not that's not going to be a big deal, right? If it's someone that knows you, someone that cares about you, someone that has worked with you and was, you felt respected by, it's not going to be a large issue. But in option 2, right, this is where we go into a large or very recognizable or popular company, and we don't know someone immediately, but we've made those 6 to 30 connections. And now we're going to go in, we're going to see, okay, I got 12 connections back that took the time to actually hit the connect. Once I sent the request, they connected. And now I got to pick one of them, and I'm going to send a total stranger a referral link note, right? And so, you'll see in my templates, there's a note for that stranger, right? It's almost identical. It's very little that changes in it. The note to the stranger, just a few things, right? Acknowledging that this person doesn't really know you. In this case, for one of my clients, there was an alumnus that they decided to send their referral link note to. And so again, we write this little brief note where there's a very clear call to action, right? You need to make your call to action. Would you be willing to send me a referral link for this role? I truly appreciate your consideration and help. And then again, you're pasting the link to the role here. And then again, you've got a different version of the middle paragraph match game. Paste it in. Now, the person last week said, well, why would someone do that, right? Why would someone do that? And one, right, there's money involved. Most of these referral programs, most companies at this point have a referral program where you're going to get paid if somebody gets hired, connected in through you. Sometimes very senior executives don't get paid, but often those executives will actually have that person go in through a lower level person so that that person can get paid. I've actually seen that happen. They'll say, oh, this is great. I think you're really interesting for the role. I'm actually going to have my counterpart below me send this in so that they could potentially get the referral. Lovely. We love to see that. So that's one, right? Money in the pocket. Now, the other thing is, at this point, we've given you a really sharp resume. We've talked about how to have a really sharp LinkedIn, beautiful, easy to read LinkedIn. I can immediately see you are a real living and breathing person, right? You're not a bot or trying to scam. You have a real career trajectory, right? That is easy and cleaned up on your LinkedIn page. And you've written me this beautiful middle paragraph match game where it's clear that you are very competent. You recognize what the role needs, and you're basically telling me, hey, I already have done that exact work already at a fairly high level. I am a fit for this job. You're making it as easy as humanly possible for the person, even the stranger that you've sent a referral link request to say, yeah, this makes sense. I'm going to send this to them. All right. So that's sort of the why behind it all. Now, let's go back up here to option 1 and option 2. This is going to be consistent throughout all my options. We've got 3 options total. We'll talk about the third in a second, but this is consistent, right? Best time to send a note on LinkedIn. Your connection request can kind of go whenever. I'm okay if it doesn't go within the bounds of Monday to Friday. But your note, when you're sending your first note, and remember that does not go with your connection request, right? A connection request just is a connection request. It does not have a note with it. Do not write a note with it. That typically annoys people. They don't want to have to do 2 things, one thing at a time, right? So send them the connection request. Again, you have a beautiful LinkedIn. If they're open to making connections on LinkedIn, there'd be no reason that they wouldn't, be open to potentially connecting with you. Okay. Notes go out Monday through Thursday night, right? So anytime between Monday morning to Thursday night. I think it's pretty obvious why, but I'm going to just say it, right? It's a lot more likely that somebody's going to take a few minutes of office time, work week time, and respond to you and nudge you along in their system than they are on a Saturday or Sunday. You've really missed your window Friday, Saturday, Sundays. You can work on this stuff on the weekends, but don't send these notes on the weekends. I can't tell you how many times I get a note on a Saturday and I'm just like, oh boy, I'm going to send that to my work email and I'll deal with it Monday. Now I'm like very diligent about emails. Most people are not. Most people just delete. So you'll be deleted Monday through Thursday evening. This is the truth for all of 3 options. Also, for all 3 options, part 3 here, once you get the referral link, you need to create the most exemplary application possible. Follow all directions, spell check, right? So follow their directions over my directions at that point, obviously. I think that makes a lot of sense, but I'm going to say it, right? Whatever they want, do it, right? Spell check everything, answer any questions they have, right? Don't be annoyed that they have a couple of questions they want you to ask. That is typical. And I used to do it as a recruiter because it was a great way to weed out candidates. Like if you couldn't take the time to answer 2 simple questions that I asked you in a complete sentence, or maybe 2 or 3 complete sentences with some thought, like I don't have a lot of faith in you as a candidate. Like it's not impressive to me, right? Like I'm asking you 2 specific questions for a reason, right? It's not meaningless. And it was a quick way for me to see what candidates said. It was also about, where they found my company that I was hiring for and what engaged them about the company, right? If you can't say that in a couple of sentences, you shouldn't be applying to the job. So please answer any questions that the system has for you. And note that I say, absolutely write a cover letter if there is space to paste a cover letter or note, or if they specifically request an attached cover letter. Okay, so these are the reasons that you're going to write a cover letter in 2023. They have a space, right, to paste a note or to paste a cover letter in their form, or they specifically request an attached cover letter. If they do not have a space and they do not want a cover letter, so they don't ask for it, you should not be even concerned about a cover letter. Do not attach a separate document of cover letter if there is no mention of it in their job description and their format for filling out their application. Now you'll see if you go, you'll all have access to this if you want it, if you email me. There is a cover letter template here, and there's a middle paragraph match game in it. So if you have already written the middle paragraph match game that directly matches to this job for the referral link, guess what? Your work is done. You can copy and paste the middle paragraph match game for the same job for the cover letter. That's fine. That's allowed. And you'll see in this case, of course, within the cover letter framework, the middle paragraph match game actually gets dropped into the center of the cover letter. So this is the middle paragraph match game and where it appears in the cover letter. And so a cover letter is super, super simple for 2023, nothing cliche, please. So obviously the first sentence is just clarifying of, what is the job that you're applying for, just to make sure even, you know, though you're going in through a system, believe me, the system can spit your file into the wrong job pocket. So just the first sentence is just clarifying of the role. You have space in the first paragraph for 1 or 2 sentences that really connect to something this company is doing, or an article you've just read about them, something really dynamic and fresh, or like you've used their product or service for a long time. Or I had a client once who had just had a baby, and in that process, she had used the product really significantly and had a lovely impact story. And so I let her use the personalization space. If you don't have something sharp, right? I once had a client send me a note to check, and it was to Apple. This is not a joke. It was to Apple. And her personalization was, I love Apple products. Listen, I love Apple products. I'm currently on an Apple product. All of my products are Apple products. They are great. But guess what? The world loves Apple products. There's a slim number of people that don't like Apple products. There's nothing special about that. There's nothing unique about that. It is painfully cliche. So we don't do that, right? We just don't do anything then. We don't need a super personalization if we don't have one. And I would just beg you to really critically think about that and do it only if you have something really meaningful to say. Okay. And then we've got the middle paragraph match game, and it's these 2 paragraphs in this person's case. And then boom, cover letter. We always end with a call to action. I'd love to talk to you about your needs and share experiences. Can we set up an informational phone call? That's it. And it is an informational phone call. We're not asking for a hard interview. First of all, we're not trying to be crazy pushy. It's not necessary. And you should realize almost every conversation is just going to start with an informational phone call, and they might ask you it'll be a light interview fairly typically. That's how a lot of these things are going to go anyway. And you should just recognize, right, that there's like a great job out there for you, but realistically, a lot of jobs won't be for you. And so you don't need to assume that this is the job that's for you. You just want to get some conversations going here, right? Like learn about what they need, think about what you do, share a little bit about what you do, and see if there's that early on fit, right? We don't assume every job is actually for us, because we know a lot of jobs, you know, are not going to be a great fit, or they're not going to be kind of like the culture we need, or the sort of hybrid flexibility we need. There's a million things going to happen in a job interview as you are in process. Don't assume the job is for you. Ask for an informational phone call and see if you can get one going, right? Get some conversations going. Okay. All right, back up. So option 2, right? You're going into a big company. You've gone to a stranger for the referral link. It takes you a couple of strangers, a couple of days pass. They don't respond. You send it to the next person that you think would be the best person to ask for a referral link. Finally, like the second or third person sends you a referral link, and boom, you apply through the system. Okay. Now we have a third option here, and this is what my clients always used to do. So prior to September of this year, this was pretty much our lead strategy. We were getting referral links through people we knew. We weren't going into strangers for referral links. And we were going in like semi-cold into jobs. So we would apply cold. And then once we applied, we then went to the company and we found people in those departments, people who we thought were the boss, people who were high up in leadership, in HR and talent acquisition. And we targeted those people on LinkedIn. We became connected to them. And then we sent them personal notes, letting them know that we had applied to the role. Now, this is still an option. This is option 3. And this is for small to medium-sized companies. And SMBs are typically 1,000 people or less. And this is in case there's no referral system at all. And so this is a third option you have, right, where you do in fact apply cold, but I want you to be real careful about using this. So if you're going after smaller companies, you may use this option. But if you are targeting those larger companies, you got to go in through a referral link. Now, let's talk about option 3 for just a few minutes here. So option 3 is a small to medium-sized company. They don't have a referral system that you know of. You've sort of checked, you've reached out to a person. They've said they don't have it. There's nothing they do. Okay. So you apply cold directly through the company website, or if there's a company job email, like listed on their company website, and it's like jobs@amazon.com, although obviously Amazon doesn't have that. Or if they do, don't use that. But for a small company, if they have a jobs at ... that's great. There's actually a real human looking at that email. So you can just send a cover letter template, right? Build out your middle paragraph match game for that specific job. Write your short little cover letter, right? Identify the job title. If you have reason for personalization, boom, personalize, get your middle paragraph match game and close it out with that call to action, right? Which is, I'd love to set up a chat with you. Send it through the jobs email, because there's a guaranteed a real human looking at that. That somebody's getting that email sent to their email system all the time. So they're looking at that. Now, if you don't see that, and often you won't, go through the company website and apply through there. So in no world do I have clients applying through LinkedIn or Glassdoor, although occasionally some companies are paying Glassdoor a fee to be the applicant tracking system. And so in those cases, the company page will boot you back to Glassdoor, and that is okay. Okay, you can apply through Glassdoor in that case only, but you should absolutely no longer be applying for a job through LinkedIn or Glassdoor or Indeed, etc. There's many reasons for this, but as someone who has sat on this side of the applicant tracking system, it is a nightmare. A digital world allows anyone who is qualified or unqualified to apply for any job. And you would be shocked at the number of applicants that apply to a job that are really, really unqualified, right? Like have no background experience in the job. Sometimes you're not even sure why they would apply to the job, because they're an engineer and this is a marketing project manager job. The digital world allows almost like a spam application process, and it's really a nightmare for recruiters, and recruiters typically are very overworked and very underpaid. And so any way that we can sort of beat the system, right? That's what I'm trying to teach all of you. And going in through the company website itself is one step to beating the system, instead of going in through a secondary site like LinkedIn. You want to go in through the company website. So apply. Again, you'll see on note 2, right? Most exemplary application possible. Goes back to the same note as the above 2 options. We always PDF our resume. This is a consistent note across the board. It basically guarantees us that they're going to get it in a very easy to read format. We know exactly what they're going to see when they open it. If a company asks for like a .doc, that's fine. Then of course do that, but otherwise PDF always. And then, this is where we kind of shift the strategy a little bit, right? Because we didn't go in through a referral link. So you went in cold. And so there's still a LinkedIn networking strategy here to be done. And it's about it's a lower number of people, right? You're going to go to the company's page and you're going to now connect with about 10 people at most at the company. You're going to look for people who you think might be the hiring manager, supervisors, the boss's boss, the CEO, C-suites of this company, right? We're talking about a company sub 1,000 people. And then you're also secondarily targeting very senior level people on the HR people operations side. So talent acquisition, recruiting, people ops. Notice the very last thing I say here, target high, target high, target high, target high. You don't want to target the baseline recruiter. Again, I'll repeat, recruiters are wildly underpaid and wildly overworked. Sometimes they're trying to fill 30 to 40 roles, one person. That is absurd. I have been on that side of the world. It is brutal for the young people and the more junior people in those positions. They don't have time to respond to you on LinkedIn, but guess who does have a lot more time and is more often on LinkedIn? The senior people, right? So director level and above, right? If this is a company smaller than 1,000 people, director level isn't that wildly high. A director level at Amazon is different from a director level at a 1,000 person company. So, just keep in mind, right? Target high. You might go director, you might go VP, you might even go to the CEO. I've seen for smaller companies that I've worked for, I've seen my CEO send me a note that said, Kelly, this person sent me a great note on LinkedIn. Would you follow up with them and have a conversation and let me know how it goes? Basically forcing me to interview that person. And sometimes it was successful and they went forward in interviews. And sometimes, I was like, oh, they're not a fit for us right now, but this is their expertise. And if we have a role like this, perhaps we can speak to them about that. So, don't be afraid to target high. And I always say, think about the level that you're going for and go at least a level above it when you're targeting, right? So if you're going for a VP level, you're going to be targeting people, VP, EVP, SVP, CEO, chief executive people, right? Serious, like chief officer level people. If you're going in for a manager level, right? It's maybe associate director or director, maybe some managers, but always go the level you're at or higher. Okay. Again, this repeat of this note, don't send a note, just send the connection request. One thing at a time, Don't make them do two things at a time. Allow 3 days for people to accept a request. Go back, look at the company's list of people to see who has connected with you. And then in this specific strategy, right, this SMB strategy, select the best 2 people. This is a 2-prong target. You can, and you're going to send them a personal note. And this is it's very similar to my cover letter, but it's a sort of cover letter LinkedIn note. And so you're going to let them know, right? The opening sentence, I wanted to reach out to you and introduce myself after reading your job description and applying for your X role. Again, you've got the personalization space available, but you've got to be really wise about using it. If you write something cliche, you've turned the person off to helping you already. People can really quickly make a fast judgment, and whether we think that's good or not doesn't matter. It's just that it could happen, and then all of a sudden they're not interested in you because you just wrote something kind of cheesy and generic here, and it really turned them off. Then we've again, of course, got this lovely middle paragraph match game, which you're going to get really great at doing, matching from job to job. And then we have the call to action paragraph, which is very brief. I would love to talk to you about the role and work life at Enya. Would you be willing to set up an informational call with me? And you note that there's this, you can add, drop the question mark and add, or direct me to someone who you think I should speak to, question mark. Be very careful about doing this, the highlighted line, because if you do it, just assume they're going to pass you off to someone else and you've already selected them as a high level target. So typically I only use that when I was sending out notes ever in the past to like CEOs, really high level people, because I knew I actually wanted to talk to the person I was targeting. Now, notice again, what this says at the header, this is going to 2 primary targets, right? So this is 2 people within the organization. My option 3 is a 2-prong target system. And one, clients always ask like, oh my God, aren't they going to share the notes? It's pretty rare that the 2 people that you pick are ever going to share that you sent the same note. And also it's really not a big deal. You're just trying to flag someone down and get their attention in a world where, making sure your resume gets seen is really challenging. So, please feel no shame in this. I've never had a client ever. And we were doing this as our sole strategy prior to this fall. So, I don't think you need to worry about that. You may send the same note to both people introducing yourself. And right, you've picked your 2 people, you send the note. Again, we've got that Monday to Thursday evening when your notes go out. And then the final note on option 3 is if the original 2 people do not respond to you, go back 1 week later and you can select up to 2 more people from the company to send it to. At that point, if no one responds, and the applicant tracking system at some point has like bumped you out and they've said, we're not interested in you for this role, it's fine. Let it go and move on. One note I want to make about option 3 before we open up for questions here. you are going to get a lot of automatic denials, and you may even get like a human denial of your application itself, right? Like, we've reviewed your candidacy and we're moving on to other candidates. I generally say, just because you get that does not mean you shouldn't follow through on all of option 3. I've had so many clients get that note and take my advice and pursue option 3 anyway, going and targeting 2 senior level people in the company, getting interviews and getting past that, like, that baseline recruiter or that baseline applicant tracking system that has some artificial intelligence that's doing that judgment calling. And, there's so much room for bias. There's so much room for human error. And there's so much room for artificial intelligence error that I've had so many clients get conversations going even after they got the rejection note from the system. So don't be afraid to continue just to try to get a conversation going. And it's even possible that if, unless it says the role is closed, if the role is closed, right, they've hired for the role is no longer open, then that's fair. You can let it go. Unless you want to try to network into the company, feel free, but you should let it go then, right? If it says the role is closed, this role is no longer available, that's a different story. But if the system is saying, we've decided to move on to other candidates, good luck in your future endeavors, you should continue with option 3. All right. So I think right now we have 16 minutes left. This could be a heavy question series. So I think enter the chat and ask questions. We'll keep recording this. So the questions will be in the recording when you get it. And let's send questions in now. And we'll talk about the job seeking strategy right now, and I'll answer any questions. And if let's keep the questions. Let's try to keep the questions fairly specific to that. All right, Brittany, it looks like we've got a couple of questions. Are you there to kind
Yes,
of?
I'm here. I'm
Great.
ready.
There's one,
Not
I think
sure
it
my
starts with
video
like
is
an
ready.
Amazon. Tom McCrane's
Yes.
question.
Yes, and that was a good question, Tom. Tom is asking if HR is really the best person to reach out to, or should you find someone in the department, maybe the department that you would be applying to?
Yeah, it's a good question. Listen, Amazon is like hard to nail down where the heck you're going at Amazon. You would never use option 3 for Amazon in general, because you can't, thousands and thousands and thousands of people work at Amazon, and the titles are kind of weird sometimes at Amazon. So you trying to find the person who's going to be your boss at Amazon, unless you have like some inside ticket to somebody telling you, my goodness, like the hope is slim at that. And so instead you can try to look for like marketing, right? You're going into marketing or marketing operations. You look for people in marketing operations. Sure, that makes a lot more sense, right? Mine shows HR because I'm talent acquisition, HR people ops. And so that's why the people I know section of LinkedIn is showing me all the people at Amazon that are HR. But you can't really narrow it down at Amazon. And that's why a referral link is so critical, because you can go in through anyone at Amazon. It doesn't need to be someone on the marketing team for a marketing role. Amazon will respect your referral link no matter what. And you do have a step up than the person cold applying, even if you go through someone in engineering for, a floor manager job. It really doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And before last week's session, I had applied to a job through LinkedIn. Would you suggest I reapply using the strategy we've discussed?
Yeah. Yes, I definitely would. One other thing, it depends on the company, right? Like in Amazon, you won't be able to like go back and do it. They won't be able to send you a referral link. So if it's a gigantic company, you may have to try option 3. But if it's not sort of one of the giants, just start it kind of over and go in through the company page.
Okay. Next question is it okay to connect with people on LinkedIn that I don't know and not follow up with a note. I'm wondering if I should begin to connect with people at an organization, even if I'm not ready to apply.
Oh yeah, that's great. I mean, you know, some people that I work with have thousands of connections on LinkedIn, and I'm thrilled because it's kind of going to make their life easier. So the more connections you have in general on LinkedIn, and really be thoughtful about making those connections, like I talk about in the strategy about like who you're looking for. Yeah, the more connections, the better. And it is behoove you to make connections in advance if you know that's an organization you really like.
Yes. Another question asked about the referral link. I've never seen a referral link at my previous employers. I would not know how to do this if someone asked for it.
Well, I don't know who this person's previous employers are, so you know, I can't really speak to that. But what I can speak to is that, you know, I'm working with a client at a very giant cable provider now, and she's been there for 10 years, very successful in her career there, kind of high up. And she actually had no idea that that famous cable provider had a referral link system. So, you know, that is going to happen. Like, you know, that they might not know that they do. Now, believe me, somebody at the giants, they know that they do. These large companies, you know, it's like very talked about because that's a lot of how they recruit and get good talent, right? They want their talent to bring in talent. But that's the reason you're sending the note, right? Is to get the door open. And then once you get the door open and you're like, oh my God, I'm talking to somebody within the company. One, you've won. If that person responds at all, even if they say like, oh, I don't know if we have a referral link system, or, oh, you know, we don't have a referral link system, you've won. They've actually been a human being and responded to you. So now it is your job to keep that door open in some way and ask them for the next step of help. Now, I would like to believe that somebody who doesn't know if their company has a referral link system or not, but gets a question, I would hope that they would actually turn to their neighbor or their boss and say, hey, do we have a referral link system? And take that as a note, you all. And I say this to my clients all the time because a lot of my clients are very snobbish about LinkedIn. And they're like, oh, well, I never accept connection requests. And they were like, do you? And I said, yeah, I always accept connection requests as long as you're clearly a real human being and not like a bot or spamming me or trying to scam. Of course I accept them. Like, why wouldn't I? And why wouldn't I be open to helping other people? If I could, if it makes sense, and if they're coming to me and they're a good fit for something, yeah, I'll help you. You know, like let's, you know, warm up this space called LinkedIn and networking, because we are in a very different world now. We are in an entirely almost digital world when it comes to getting a job. And like getting a job through someone that you know in real life is really diminishing fast. And a lot of us, like me, I'm in my early 40s, you know, the early part of my career, I think I got a lot of jobs based on who I know and who knows me. And that is not the case anymore. It's much harder to get your foot in the door in this digital space where everybody can get their foot in the door.
Yes, thank you. Okay, before we forget, Jeanette is asking if you're going to put your email address in the chat.
Oh yeah, it's Kelly, Kelly. I'm putting it in there now. And my company name is shewillbuild.com. So Kelly,
And then yes, put a link to your website in there too.
Just shewillbuild.com. And I was going to tell you all, you know, I do have really pretty smart boundaries about this. So you can email me and you can request the toolkit, and I'm going to be working on it tomorrow to put these documents in something that I feel comfortable sharing. So I'll get it to you either late this week or next week. I will not ignore your email, but it may take me a few days to get it to you. If you request the toolkit, so just say that you're requesting like the AHPL toolkit, and I'm working on like figuring out what I feel comfortable giving out. I normally don't give these tools out to people that aren't my clients. So I'm working on that. And so you can ask for that, the AHPL toolkit from me. And you can also ask me up to 2 5-minute questions. So, you can come to me and say like, okay, I have this quick question for Kelly, right? Can she read it and respond to it in 5 minutes? And if so, I'm willing to answer up to 2 of those for each person. And then obviously, if it's a larger question, I'll tell you like, oh, you would probably need to consider a pay session for this.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. And I was going to tell you that you could also send the documents to me if that works better, because we tend to send out a follow-up email. Once
I will keep
programs
that in
are
mind.
concluded.
I'll
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
Okay, we got another question here. I get LinkedIn requests from people outside of my industry, and there isn't an obvious connection between what we do. Do you suggest accepting these requests to increase my network?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you have no idea, there may be a reason that that person is networking with you. Now, some people are networking to like sell something, and if that's the case, you can just kind of ignore their messages if they start trying to sell you something, or you can, disconnect from them. But otherwise, I honestly connect with anybody that wants to connect with me, as long as I do a 3-second check and they are a living human being, clearly have a career established, and are not, there's no chance of scam. And I mean, I'm pretty savvy about that stuff. Everybody isn't, but I pretty much allow anybody to connect with me.
Okay, great. And Lucy, yes, the recordings will be available. I'm not sure how soon, because again, we have 3 videos to unpack here. But in the meantime, if everyone could please fill out the survey. The survey is so important to us, to let us know how you enjoyed the series, how you enjoyed the program, and it will help me bring Kelly back next year. So we've already talked about it, so I'm trying to get her back as soon as possible. But please, everyone, fill out the survey.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that the interesting thing to keep in mind for everybody is that I'm sure that you recognize that, right? The strategies I've talked about throughout this, they are a moving target. I've been working one-to-one with clients on this stuff specifically for 4 years, almost 4 years now. And, the transformation that has happened in the market through the pandemic, then, sort of beyond the pandemic. And now we're moving into 2023, and like just the digital transformation, the artificial intelligence has grown. The utilization of artificial intelligence has grown so much in the last less than 2 years. These things are moving targets. They are changing. And the one thing that never changes is your communication about who you are, what you do, what your brand of sort of magic at work is, right? What your strengths are, and what your wins have been in each role, right? That is never going to change. Those things are always going to be valuable across the board, from resume to, touch points on LinkedIn, certainly to touch points on that referral link note, the cover letter note, and then of course to the touch points of interview. So your communication toolkit, which is what I really am working on building for all of you, how you communicate yourself to that world, that will never change, in my opinion. Like your ability to speak to your strengths, your magic at work, and what you have done that you're really proud of, and stories that have really, some of you will know what STAR stories are: situation, task, action, result. Those kinds of stories, those are always going to be incredibly valuable in the job market. All right. Any final questions?
I was just about to say that this is it. This is
Your
it for
last
Kelly.
minutes, your last minutes of free time with Kelly. I am a decent investment. So you've really, the Arlington Heights Public Library has really generously put together a program here for everybody, I would say. Thank you, Brittany.
Yes. Thank you, Kelly. This has been awesome. And I want to thank all of those who have attended, but I definitely want to thank Kelly for her time. She's been working on this about a year. I reached out to her last year. So she's been working on this for a while, and she's dedicated 3 Wednesdays with us. So I'm so happy to have her, and she was awesome. And I look forward to bringing her back in 2023. So with that, Kelly, I want to wish you a happy holiday and a happy new year, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, same thing. Happy holidays to everybody. Stay safe out there, have fun, and go after what you want in your career. Really look at what you want and make plans, and step by step, baby steps. It's incremental steps. I always tell people, I never realized I was so close to things. It was just a series of baby steps that got me, to where I am today. And all of a sudden the baby steps turn into some giant leaps. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, whoa, I'm making a 6-figure salary. Holy cow. Oh my God, I got a job with unlimited paid time off. Baby steps got me there. So the baby steps can lead to some big jumps, and then more baby steps, and really focus up on what you want, everybody. You're going to have a great new year here in 2023. And I really do think that these tools are certainly going to be very compelling at minimum for the first 6 months. I mean, things can always change in the market, but I think the first 6 months of the new year are looking very strong for the job market, for new job seekers, for people seeking new roles. All right.
Yes.
Adios,
All right.
friends. Farewell. Thanks, Brittany.
Thanks, Kelly.